Good morning to you, Marcel with HurricaneTrack here, Monday now, the 5th of August, 2024. Going to try to put an update together for you here, and then I got to get off this cruise ship and start making my way back home to North Carolina. Should be home, God willing, all the weather in between. Tomorrow morning we have the red-eye flight tonight after an extraordinary trip with the family up into Alaska. Debby makes landfall in the overnight hours just a few hours ago near Steinhatchee, Florida. Good friend of ours, a good colleague of the project, Marcel Lagabo, was there. I'll show you that in just a moment from a tweet from him. But let's take a look at what we've got. Ian Oliver, Fox Weather, the headline here a couple hours ago. Debby making landfall at 80 miles per hour. Second hurricane to make landfall in the U.S. this season, and it's only August the 5th. We've got a long ways to go, folks. And we got to talk about these impacts coming up for the southeast. So here are some photos, radar scope image showing where Marcel was. Probably quite a few chasers down here in Steinhatchee. We had a camera there for Idalia last year, and it was extraordinary. Probably find some of that back on Twitter. But yeah, Marcel was there. Excuse me, just getting up here. So it's going to be a little grovelly this morning. It looks like he had a low pressure of 982.9 on his Kestrel there. So good pressure readings. We'll see how that matches up with all the other chasers that I am certain were in that area. So appreciate Marcel helping out. Marcel also set up this camera for the project, one of our remote storm surge cams. This was in Cedar Key, the 6th time that we have put something in Cedar Key over the last several years. This was last night around 2 a.m. As you can see up there, 1:55 in the morning. Big waves coming in, crashing over the road and that little bulkhead there. A familiar sight over the last several years, unfortunately. And it's just what happens when it's hurricane season and the pattern is ripe. So let's see what we've got. Debby now still a hurricane over the Big Bend area of Florida. Winds are starting to come down just a little bit. But I'm telling you, this is going to be a long and lasting saga over the coming days as this system gets up into the southeast off the coastline there, and a lot of rain is coming. That's what I really want to focus on for today. All the rainfall that could be coming, anything that you see in the orange and then the red and then sort of the crimson color and then the pink, we are talking 8 inches plus. All right, so 8 inches plus, 6 to 8, all the way up to possibly 20 inches or more, especially in parts of the low country of South Carolina. This will be changeable. So this is going to change over time, depending on what the track of Debby ends up being. We could see some very heavy rainfall readings spreading more to the north and east. Come on, we got to get a bigger stroke line for that. Up here into North Carolina and northeast South Carolina, depending on what that track does. So, we focus on categories, we focus on labeling everything. You need to think of this as a Category 4 rain event coming your way with potentially catastrophic flooding where people are just flooded out of their homes and businesses. That is going to be the big story here for the next few days on one side of the impacts. The other side, if Debby gets back out over the Atlantic long enough, obviously there could be some chance for intensification. Then we could be talking about some storm surge, coastal erosion problems along the coastline, of course, the beaches of South Carolina and North Carolina, and then wind impacts, power outages. And with all this rain, it's going to be really easy to just lay those trees down. So you folks up in the Carolinas need to be getting ready. You need to be getting your quick dams. Come on, you've heard me talk about that enough. You should know by now. You can get those at Lowe's and Home Depot, among other places. Also, right off of Amazon.com, you just search quick dams. Those are the reusable, much better solution flood bags and other flood mitigation products. You need to be getting ready for power outages. Maybe look at your generator while you've got a chance. Make sure that's going to be working, because this is not going to be in and out. Debby is too slow moving, and we're going to have to be dealing with it for several days. Peak surge, that is going to start to come down, and it is coming down along the Big Bend area. Now we have to start looking at the potential for storm surge over here along the coast of South Carolina, and then this will eventually start to move north with time, but we'll deal with that when we get there. This is what Debby looks like on the true color satellite animation this morning, and I think it can kind of tell you where it's going to go. It's going to come up in here to the southeast. If you just look at the cloud pattern, it's not going to just head up the east coast in any kind of a big hurry. It's more than likely going to just slowly meander here, get off the coast, and then the question is, does it come right back in quickly, or is it able to come back out and then hook back to the northwest? As we look at the modeling in just a minute, I'll kind of explain all that, but it has a very favorable pattern around it. This is not late in the season where you have tremendous troughs coming down that shear these things with lots of cool, dry air behind. A massive, massive rainmaker all through this area. Already had a lot of rain in Florida, and this is just getting started. We're going to start the week off here, honestly, kind of on a negative note with this system. We've got to be ready for it from where it is now in Florida all the way up through the Carolinas and maybe even beyond. Yeah, we got to deal with this for quite some time. So here is the track map off the HurricaneTrack Insider site, our interactive tracking map again. Debby, Category 1 now, and 75 mile per hour wind just inland over the Big Bend area. But you can see, I talked about this yesterday, you've got that large bulbous shape to the forecast cone here. That indicates a lot of uncertainty and slow movement in the track. Now, as it stands, officially, Debby's supposed to get back out over the water for a day or so and then come inland between Georgetown and Myrtle Beach. I think that it's going to be a little bit farther out into the Atlantic, just looking at some of the guidance, and then come inland farther to the north. But I'm not the National Hurricane Center. They're going to change their forecast slowly. There's no reason to knee-jerk things and windshield wiper the forecast around. There's time for these adjustments, and but I do think that this is going to come out more into the Atlantic, just looking at the overall pattern. Basically, what you're going to be having is what we call height falls out in the Atlantic. The Bermuda High, you know, it flexes, it ebbs and flows, it breathes in, it breathes out. And when the heights fall out there, this is kind of attracted to that height fall, so to speak. And those subtle differences in the strength of that Bermuda High will determine how far out into the Atlantic this gets before the Bermuda High reestablishes itself. That's sort of the simplest way that I can put it. Now let's look at some of the global models here, and I want to show you the disparity between three of them. This is the GFS, what we call the operational. So there you go. This is from the 6Z run in the overnight hours. And let me just move this out through the next few days. Watch what happens. It's inland, and then it gets back out over the water, and then it comes right back in Georgia over the next 4 days. All right, and then let's just take it out to day 5 so that we can compare everything as we move forward. The ECMWF, this was just a few hours earlier, so this is the 0Z run. GFS was the 6Z run, but I want to show you the full operational Euro, so it's just a few hours earlier. The overnight run initialized at 0Z last night. This is a lot different than the GFS. The Euro comes in, comes out down there near Savannah, and then it gets back out over the water, starts to deepen again, the pressure getting down to 980, about where it is now, and then it makes landfall up near the Myrtle Beach area. So southeast North Carolina would be in the right front quadrant, yay, and I say that sarcastically. And just in case you didn't know, I live right there in Wilmington, North Carolina, so that's going to be really interesting. The family and I were going to get back. We got the red eye, get into Charlotte, and then eventually to Raleigh about 24 hours from now. That's going to be fun. Talk about feeling like a zombie. Yuck. But, you know, I tried to do the vacation before August 20th when things typically get busy, and I got burned. But we'll see. If this is even more out into the Atlantic, it could be more North Carolina impacts. And by the way, this is the 10-meter wind and the sea level pressure. This shows us nothing about that catastrophic rainfall that could be coming. So then, by day 5, the Euro has it up here in the sandhills of North Carolina. GFS is southwest of there, so at least the 5-day positions are similar. Then you've got the ICON model. Now this model, fairly new on the scene overall, not a lot of people have heard of it, but maybe you heard of it during Beryl, because the ICON did a great job. I believe it's German-oriented. I have to look into it more, to be honest with you. I've kind of ignored it over the years. It was an up-and-comer, but boy, it did really well with capturing that northern turn with Beryl just about a month or so ago. So what does the Icon show? The Icon, more aggressive, but a very similar solution track-wise to the Euro. It's just a little bit more to the east, only by a little bit. I mean, we're only talking miles there. But I think that's pretty fascinating that the Icon is very similar to the Euro. There's the Euro. There's the Icon. That's pretty darn close. Now, the Icon's a lot deeper. It's handling it differently strength-wise. Don't worry about that. We need to worry about impacts, not categories. Okay, we got to wipe that out. And I mean, honestly, until you get a major hurricane, Category 3, 4, and 5, you don't need to really worry about the category. You need to be worrying about what is it going to do at my house or my business. Curiously, though, I was trying to think, all right, what do the hurricane models show? This is the HWRF, specifically designed for hurricanes, the Hurricane Weather Research Forecast model. It brings the system in, and then like the GFS, right back into Georgia. So I do not know why the GFS, why the HWRF, which is based on GFS background grids and whatnot, do that. And then the non-American models bring it closer to the North Carolina, South Carolina border region. It's perplexing. So we're going to have to just watch and see how this works itself out in real time over the coming days. But again, the biggest issue here, let's go back to the interactive map so I can really point this out. Change this to red. The flood threat all through here, I'd say even up into southeast North Carolina, is very real. We're going to have river flooding after all this rain subsides. That's going to last for days. And we're just now getting into the meat of the hurricane season. A very problematic situation coming up. And I will be back. I'll be back in time to get ready to cover part 2 of this. Huge shout out to the back end team. Mike, Marcel, Tim, Kari helping out, Howard and Matt, everybody on that back end. And then the whole group of people that supports us on HurricaneTrack through YouTube and our Patreon. Couldn't do this without you. This is why we were able to get a couple cameras out there. One in Keaton Beach. By the way, not much happened there at all because the eye went in just between Keaton Beach and Steenhatchee, so we didn't get a bunch of onshore flow at the Keaton Beach site. But Cedar Key, as I showed you, definitely came to life, so really appreciate everybody helping to make that happen while I spent some very quality family time up in the great state of Alaska, which I highly recommend if you can ever do that, by the way. Have yourselves a great rest of your Monday. I'm going to shut all this down and get myself off this boat. I am Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow back home in North Carolina.